Wait, before you listen to this episode, I just had to tell you about our new free mini wealth building training. In this training, we're covering the first steps to building wealth, how to find your personalized wealth path, how to find and analyze deals, and then some. So don't miss out on this free training. I mean, what do you have to lose? It's free. Sign up at www.abundantculture.co/newsletter. Don't let delay get in the way of your abundant year. Now, back to the episode. Welcome back to Abundant Culture Podcast,
where we dissect the mindsets and tactics of the true beasts of business.
People like Gary Vee, Grant Cardone, and Warren Buffett.
All to create a blueprint to experience life more abundantly.
Hey, Emily, and welcome back to the Abundant Culture Podcast. We had so much fun interviewing you, the last interview. So the audience, they'll listen to it a couple days from now. So we are really excited to talk to you again because we didn't even get to go through all the questions we had for you in the last episode. So we wanted to make sure that we got those questions out for the audience. And we'll just start by asking you, what is Giving Tuesday? Because this episode is going out on Giving Tuesday.
Sure. Well, first of all, thank you so much for having me back. I'm so excited to be here and so excited to be talking to your audience about fundraising and about kind of what that landscape looks like from both a nonprofit and for-profit perspective. So Giving Tuesday was brought about in 2012. And it's really simple. It's all about, it's just coined as, and I'm reading this off their website right now. So it's coined as a day that encourages people to do good. So it's been around for about 7 years. The idea is to advocate and fundraise for nonprofits and NGOs all over the world through this specific day. So rather than spending money that you would otherwise, especially right after Thanksgiving or right around Thanksgiving, whether it's before or after that year, it's just a point to express gratitude towards causes that you really care about.
I think that's really awesome. I think, and the cool part about it, I think, is just like I really do have a heart for giving back and philanthropy. Like, even though we don't do it at the scale we want to right now. Like, I think a year or two ago, me and Jasmine were like buying groceries for different families for the holidays. Families that possibly couldn't afford them. And we think that at the end of the day, I mean, you can become as successful as you want, you make as much money as you want, buy every material possession that you could ever dream of. But I think at the end of the day, the most fulfilling thing, or at least for me, is that after all that's said and done, is that you actually give back to somebody else, because that's the only thing that's really going to be left behind after you're gone is what did you do for other people. Yep. So I think it's really cool to have a day for that.
Yep, me too.
So when it comes to the nonprofits, before we get into the fundraising aspect, we have to ask you, what is the most important thing that you, like someone that has a nonprofit, should like do for success? Like, this has to be done 100%.
In my mind, it's strategic planning. So it sounds like a big word, sounds like a big project. It can be a really huge investment, but it doesn't need to be. It's basically figuring out within the next 3 to 5 years, and you can go 10, you can go 15, however long you want, but really figuring out, where are we going? And what are we doing? What are we really trying to accomplish here? And surrounding yourself with people who not only believe in that mission and vision that you have for your organization, and defining a mission, vision, and values for your organization as a part of that strategic planning process, but really surrounding yourself with people who are going to enhance that mission and vision and believe in it, sometimes more than even you do, but help you to expand it. Because a lot of times I think, especially when we're onto something really big and something that's been this life dream of ours, or something that we believe to be a huge piece of the legacy that we want to leave in our lives, sometimes when we get to the point of actually doing something about it, fear can creep in. And that can hold us back from actually doing the thing we want to do. So there are a series of questions that we typically ask when we initially are starting the strategic planning process, just to really get the needle turning a little bit and just to get the ball rolling. And some of those are, these are just a couple examples, but what first inspired you to join or start this organization? What was your aha moment that made you really say, this is where I want to invest my time? Because we all know time is the only resource we can't get back.
Yeah.
And if that's the case, and you're investing your time and your energy, and sometimes even your own financial, coming at it from a financial perspective too, when you're doing that, there's typically a moment at which you decide that this is what you want to do. And remembering what that felt like, and remembering the place that you were in, and the things that were driving that decision, can be tremendously helpful. What is the impact you want to have in 20 years, in 50 years? I mean, we're talking about really significant things here. And we want to make sure that we're setting up the business from a planning perspective, and also from a long-term perspective, so that we're able to accomplish those 50-year goals. And that starts with putting them down on paper, which is typically what a strategic plan is, and then breaking it down in measurable steps, so you bridge the gap from where you currently are, which might be nothing, to this 50-year goal in digestible chunks.
Okay.
Yeah. And that's
Long-winded, sorry, but that's what it is.
A question I had is, I just heard you say business, and I asked you about nonprofits. So can you talk a little bit about that? Like, because I don't think, this is just what I think. I don't really think people look at nonprofits as a business. So should it be looked at it as that way?
Well, if you think about it this way, in order to be in existence, your organization, whether it is nonprofit or for profit, has to have the doors open, right? You have to have a service that you're providing, you have to have somewhere to go, you have to have products that you're shipping out. I mean, even if you're operating a I don't know, if you have a food pantry, you have to be able to have somewhere for people to pick up the groceries and be able to pay staff. All of those things require money, which means that, as far as we're concerned, and this is just the way that we at the Cultivated Group, which is where we do our business, you need to have a profitable business, or at least one that is reaching your financial goals every month, in order to keep those lights on, in order to have the infrastructure and the staff that you need to make that mission possible and viable. So we too think, and deeply, deeply believe, that your nonprofit, while it might not be taking and skimming money off the top, because that's not the point of a nonprofit. The point is to invest it back in the mission and continue to grow your operation. You won't be paid dividends the same way that you would otherwise, but you do need to be functioning as a business, and a profitable one at that, because the financial and overall health of your entity is going to reflect the quality of the care you are and the impact that you're having in the world.
Absolutely. That reminds me of one of the sayings that one of our business mentors always says to us. Anytime we're looking to do something, maybe sell a new product, new service, he always have us run the numbers on the product, and just to see if it has profit margin. And he says, no margin, no mission. Because that margin is what helps you, kind of like you said, keep the doors open. And I think a lot of entrepreneurs, I think that's really important for entrepreneurs to hear, because I feel like sometimes we can be so passionate about what we're doing that we can totally forget that there's a bottom line that needs to be satisfied every single month, or at least a few months out of the year, for you to really just stay in business and continue serving. And if those needs aren't met, then no matter how big your heart is, you're not going to be able to give the type of service that you would like to give to your customer, or whoever your not-for-profit donates to, or whoever your not-for-profit actually serves. And I think that's such an important key thing to really look at. Is like, you don't have to, try to become a multi-billionaire like Jeff Bezos, but at the same time, there should be a financial health within the company, and it should be something that is growing, so that you can continue to serve more and more people and create a bigger and bigger impact.
Yep, and those numbers and those measurement tools will continue to evolve as you continue to evolve and grow as a leader, as a CEO, as a manager, as your business continues to grow and evolve. But you mentioned the bottom line, and you don't have to have just one bottom line. I mean, somebody told me, it was a mentor of mine, told me at one point, what you measure matters to you. So measure what matters to you. And this is kind of basic for us, very much like the human experience. I mean, food, water, shelter.
Yeah.
Duh, right?
Yeah.
If our vessels aren't ready to go, if our vessels aren't existing in a way that is like able to engage in life fully, then we're not going to have the life experience that we want to have. And it's very similar to businesses, but we don't measure the quality of our life just based on food, shelter, water. There's so many other dimensions of quote unquote success that we measure, and that can be the same thing for your business. You can measure success based on the quality of care you're able to provide your constituents, based on the number of constituents you're able to provide care to, based on the expansion of the mission, vision, values that you're really seeping in, based on your brand awareness and how you're partnering with other organizations to amplify that. I mean, there are so many ways and so many things that you can measure. That bottom line that is the revenue at the end of the day needs to be one of them, just so that you can, again, keep those doors open, but it doesn't need to be the only one. You can have the business acumen while still having that heart space activated. And there's a really cool synergy there.
Yeah, I think so too. And I think the world that we live in is, I think, birthing a type of entrepreneur that is sometimes even more impact focused than they are bottom line focused. And I think that's just such a beautiful thing to be able to say, when somebody asks you, why did you go into business? My really shallow answer, a few years back was because, well, nobody wanted to hire me. So I mean, that was literally my reason starting off.
And at the end of the day, that's enough. I think some people, because we're being groomed in this impact driven society at the moment from some perspectives, we're being groomed to have, and especially in the nonprofit space, it's like serve at all costs, which is to an extent true. Give of yourself freely and generously, but not to the point that you're completely dry. There's no shame in making money, especially if you're doing it with integrity and honesty and tact. There's no shame in that.
And also going back to what you were saying before, just allowing that space for that evolution to also happen, because, your needs, 5 years ago are probably going to be a lot different from what your needs are today. And that might be a lot different from what they are 10 years from now. And I think, watching our evolution, I mean, our needs changed every 6 months.
Right. I was going to say 3 months. That's about where I'm at. No, mine's about at 6 too.
Right. But allowing for, that grace for that to happen in not only your business, but, your not-for-profit, your mission, whatever it is that you're trying to give to the world.
Yep.
And I just think that's an amazing thing to have happen, when you can say, oh, I used to want this, but now today this is my focus. And being able to really allow to measure that new thing, whatever that new thing is. There's going to be different changes that pop up, and I think being flexible and being able to adapt to that is extremely important, whether you're running a non-for-profit or a for-profit business.
Yep. And it's not, again, this is just not financial. This is a totally comprehensive way of looking at business and the way that you're investing your time and creating your life. I mean, especially if you're an entrepreneur who's leaning into creating the life of your dreams, allow yourself space to be able to evolve and to grow and to shift, and know that there are seasons for different things, and that workflow at this time might look different than workflow at this time, and the needs of your team will be different. And I mean, it's growth. As far as I'm concerned, and as far as we're concerned, the way that we do business is that personal growth and business growth are very, very, very similar, in that they're constant, especially if you create space for that evolution. But man, I love these conversations.
Yeah, it's definitely constant. I would definitely say that, especially for me, because I'm just all over the place. I could be a lot to deal with. It's
he's like a balloon that just keeps going up, and I sit there and I hold the string sometimes. Not yet. Don't go.
Somebody's got to do it, honestly.
Yeah. It has to happen. So when it comes to raising capital in regards to a non-for-profit landscape, what is the most efficient way for somebody running a non-for-profit to do that? Because I feel fundraising is such a weird thing depending on where you come from. I mean, even I'm finding it out. There's there's people who will say, oh, I raised $1 million for this project yesterday, and it's and then you have your little $10,000 project, and it's where am I gonna find $2,000? So how
I'm gonna go sit in that corner for a while.
Right. So how do you do that in a manner that is efficient and actually works with your mission and what you're trying to do.
Sure, and I wish there were a one-size-fits-all, like, cute, quippy thing that I could tell you. And also, I love that we're talking about all of this change stuff. It's just, like, internally cracking me up because we're talking about all this business stuff and all this change stuff and have, like, such calm demeanors, and we're talking about it so chill, when in reality, a lot of times it does not feel this chill. And, like, actually going through the experience, I feel like it's worth saying this, like, actually going through the experience does not always feel like this. But if you've set up your organization and your entity with that North Star that is your mission, vision, values, that strategic plan of, okay, this is really what we're looking to accomplish, it sometimes makes that turbulence feel a little bit less bumpy because you know that all of the actions that you have are aligned with that 1, 2, or 3 things.
Yeah.
And in doing that, you have purpose and intention with everything that you're doing. And if you don't, cut it out. It's actually that simple. If it doesn't align with those things, then you're not pursuing the right thing and you're distracting yourself and making this take longer and be much more annoying than it needs to be. Yeah, but
Agreed.
Yeah, that being said, I was just like, we're talking about this so chill, and it really doesn't feel like this, especially when it's your own company and you're in the weeds and trying to figure it out. And it's a lot more easy, or at least it feels a lot more easy to reflect upon it than it does to actually go through it.
Absolutely.
Oh yeah, 100%.
So yeah, I don't know that there's like one size fits all. This is point A to point B, the best or easiest way to get donations or capital for your organization when you're a nonprofit. But there is a cycle of philanthropy. So there are 6 different stages, and basically you can break it down into these different stages so you can figure out who you're targeting, what they're worth. Do they have the capacity to be able to give you a gift, especially if you're a 501c3, that is tax deductible for them, that is advantageous financially for them, while also serves some kind of a benefit or value add to their life. So basic questions that you can ask yourself as you're kind of thinking about, okay, this is who my ideal donor might be. This is what they might look like. Not necessarily physically, but these are different characteristics that they have. They might be in this kind of business. They might be about this age. They might have a capacity to give X amount. Really thinking about those things and identifying who that ideal prospect might be is kind of phase 1. And then actually identifying people like that. So doing your research, making sure that you are reaching out to people who look like that ideal profile for you. I guess I'm going to pause really quickly and I'm going to pick up where I left off because I do realize there is a really quick, easy way for me to answer that's cute and also kind of cringy. But the easiest way for a nonprofit executive director or president to handle fundraising, especially as they're building out an operation, is to hire it out.
Yeah,
I love that answer. That's like my favorite answer to everything.
I was like, wait, that's so simple. It's silly.
I love that answer.
Yeah. Yeah, but it's true. It's true. I mean, it can be so daunting, especially if you're looking to raise. We're working with somebody right now who within this quarter, they're starting at nothing and they want to raise 1.5 million by the end of December.
Wow.
And it is possible. That's the thing. I mean, and that's what I was trying to say, but I don't think I did a very good job about it with strategic planning, is get people on your team and surround yourself with people who believe in what you're doing, because that belief and that movement and the momentum that creates and the ideas that are generated from being in a space like that are so dynamic that you'll be able to move the needle. And if you don't hit the goal that you want, then you'll make a different goal that's probably going to be bigger for the next quarter or the next 6 months or the next year. I mean, surround yourself with people who are going to advocate for that expansion. So anyway, that was my quick answer. I'm going to jump back into the cycle of philanthropy because I think this is going to be really helpful. So basically, let me run through the 6 steps and then I'll kind of break it down. So 1 is identification. Ideal donor. Who does this look like? Who do you want to be working with as a partner of your organization? And it's really important to be thinking about your donors as partners, because you want people who are going to be in it for the long haul, which means they might start off giving you $100, but you've treated them so well that over the course of their 10-year relationship, they eventually every single year have increased that gift, and their overall lifetime of that donor over that 10 years can be upwards of 15 grand? Starting off from like maybe $100 donation. So figure out who you want to talk to and who you want, not necessarily talk to, but figure out who you want to be partners with your organization. And then go find some. I mean, it's not complicated, it's people. I think too, we can get so in our heads about, oh, what if they say no? It's going to be personal. I didn't do a good enough job, all of these things. At the end of the day, you're fundraising for your organization's mission and vision. Lean into that. Nothing about this is personal other than the experience that you're sharing about the organization that you're involved with in building. So I think too, we can get so caught up in ego games or so caught up in not wanting to fail or not wanting to be told no, or so many of these things that we don't even try. And especially if that bottom line is something that you need help with, that's the worst thing that you could do because you're not even trying. So anyway, that identification is going to be key. Next step is qualification. So figuring out, okay, we've identified maybe 50 prospects, we'll call them, which is basically we have 50 of the people who you think might make amazing donors. And also it's really important to, as your strategic planning for that 3 to 5 year window, but also for potentially a 1 to 3 year development plan, figuring out how much capital you're going to need in order to make your operation not only run but profitable and help bridge the gap from that place that you currently are to where you want to be 3 years from now, that also aligns with that longer term strategic plan. So you see, we're just connecting the dots in ways that make sense, and also kind of connecting the dots looking both forwards and backwards so that all our bases are covered. It doesn't mean this is going to be perfect. This is a plan. It's not the future. So making sure that you're also giving yourself grace, but really relentlessly aligning with that is going to be important through action. So next step is qualification, making sure that those prospects and that number that you've come up with through the identification process of the amount that they may potentially be able to give aligns with the number that you need. So if you're trying to raise $100,000 in a year, making sure that you have more than that in capacity that your prospects are able to give. So if we need $100,000 and we have 50 prospects, basic math says maybe $2,000 a piece. I say no. You're not going to get likely every gift that you ask for. So buffer that in. Plan for that. Plan for potentially a 25 to 30% return rate. So for every donation you ask, you likely will not get it. You might get 30%, and that's totally fine. And it's not necessarily of the amount. There can be a lot of variables here, and you can break it down however you want, but if you want to keep it simple, just think about it like you potentially could get, and you will get 30% of the asks that you put out there, meaning you want to have 30% of that 50 that you are depending on making that $100,000. And I know we're doing math via voice, so sorry if that's weird or complicated for anybody listening. You're fine. It's not my strong suit. I'm very much a paper person. But the next step is qualification. So making sure that you've done your research with any software that you have or any information you can find. Google is amazing for this. Same thing with Facebook. Figuring out the assets that these people have, seeing if their giving cycles and their giving patterns historically have aligned with missions that are similar to yours. This is you actually getting the data. This is you doing the research. This is you creating bios. If you need to, if you're a one-man show, this is why it's important to hire out, because it can be incredible.
Thank you.
But it doesn't need to be. It can be a quick search. Not everybody is public about their giving, and that is totally donor's preference. There's no right or wrong way to do it. But with some people, you can find out a lot just simply by looking around. So qualification equals poking around, making sure that you vetted, basically due diligence. The next step is cultivation. So that is building the relationship. That's introducing them to your organization. That's you getting in touch with them. That's you and or your team, your development operation, warming them up. The next step, solicitation. That's when the donation comes in. That's when you make the ask. It's really important to prepare for this in a way that is going to resonate with the donor. So preparing that pitch in a very specific way. And a pitch in the nonprofit space is very much like a pitch in the for-profit space. There are different elements of a pitch that you want to make sure that you have in there, and there are different key points that you want to have, because at the end of the day, if you're looking for donors who are partners, it's very much like them making an investment in your team, in your operation, in your mission. So that solicitation, negotiation, and or donation is a part of the fourth step within the 6-step cycle of philanthropy. The next step, and arguably the most important, is stewardship. So that is leaning into, that's basically the thank you committee, is the way that I like to think about it. And that is making sure that you are honoring the gift that they've given you and honoring the investment and building a relationship in a way that's authentic, keeping them posted on what's actually going on with your organization. Maybe not sharing all the dirty laundry if it's not necessary, but really letting them know that their business and their investment is going to good use, and you look forward to continuing to partnering with them in the future. This is the long-term play. This is how renewals happen, which is the next phase and the last phase, because this is a cycle. This is a circle of philanthropy. So really what we're trying to do is make sure that we're creating a system that can be implemented over and over and over and continue to build and grow and snowball, and really setting your organization up for success. So breaking all of that down again, sorry to completely interject in the middle of that, but I just felt like I needed to. And that's kind of an overview of what the philanthropic cycle looks like. But I mean, leaning into it, you can go about that a plethora of different ways. And again, it doesn't need to be complicated and it doesn't need to be expensive.
Wow, I love that the six steps. Like, I think it breaks it down in a really digestible way. And a question I have about, I guess, one of the earlier steps is like when you are look like find trying to find people to donate and partner, where do people generally like get the leads from? Are they kind of looking at like other organizations lists, or is that even like a thing?
So there are a few different ways to go about this, and this kind of goes into development strategy and like fundraising strategy, which is something that we love to do at the Cultivated Group. And it's figuring out, okay, if we're looking to raise 100 grand, what percentage of it do we think is going to be gifts that are $2,500 and below? What percentage of gifts do we think is going to be potentially between 2,500 and 5,000? What breakdown is going to look like 5 to 10? What is 10 to 25 going to look like? How about 25 to 50? Figuring out a distribution of what these different gift chunks are going to look like, because based on the level of giving, which is that threshold that I was just mentioning, based on that level, there's going to be a different strategy that's at play, because it takes the same amount of energy to raise $1,000 that it does 100,000. Same amount of energy, but the strategy is going to be different. So as we're looking at this and as we're planning and as we're really putting manpower and action behind these, again, mission, vision, values, as we're really living that out and leaning into the development and strategic plan that we put together, we want to make sure that we're getting a really good return on investment, which means we're going to put a little more time and energy into maybe 7 prospects who are capable of giving us $100,000 than 24 prospects who are capable of giving us $1,000, because $24,000 is significantly less than $700,000. Significantly less, but it takes the exact same amount of energy. So as you're planning, you can really think about, okay, based on geographically where I am, based on the mission and vision of the nonprofit and the impact that we're looking to have in this world and or our country, or whatever quote unquote space your organization's impact occupies, there are likely already organizations who are doing similar things to you, but there are also likely other nonprofits and places in the for-profit, and I say places, but I really mean businesses in the for-profit space that are already giving through their corporate social responsibility programs, and or individuals who are really passionate about what you're doing. There are already people in play like that. So I say this because some people really are into buying lists. So you can buy contact lists of people. I'm not into that. It tends to be a lower level donor, which there is no problem with that. And absolutely every gift is appreciated in a nonprofit. Every single gift. But I don't agree with the purchase of something like that. It just doesn't sit well with me. So that's not something that we do, but that's an option. So you can buy that. You could look at other people's lists. You could get an annual report and see who people's donors are, who like-minded organizations are. You could look up community foundations are a really incredible source of revenue generation for nonprofits. They often award local grants, which is amazing. There are also tons of family foundations and foundations that are set up to give grants to nonprofits who are registered 501c3s, which is just a tax determination with the IRS. So basically 501c3 is like when you get your LLC status, except it's a little more, there are a few more loops and parameters to jump through. I guess hoops to jump through rather than loops as you're creating whatever structure you are. So there are tons of different ways to go about it, which is why that is precisely why a strategy is so important, because you can't be going 12 million different directions in order to get to where you're going to go. Yeah. Maybe pick one or pick 3 and then trial and error to get down to that one and really find that path and really find that niche that you're looking. So I say that because there's not really one source, which is such an incredible thing, but also can be really confusing as you're starting, which is why it can be really helpful to just hire it out.
Yeah, and I think that resonates with me a lot, just because just to be kind of transparent in our capital raise, even though we don't we haven't necessarily raised capital for a non-for-profit, but in our business, which we raise capital to buy different assets, it started off as real estate. Now it's moving towards more different types of businesses. And like, I resonate with what you said about there not being one way to do it. And I think when me and Jasmine, when we were raising capital for real estate, it worked like a charm the way we were doing it. And then we made this pivot in our business where we're telling everybody, okay, we're buying businesses now, which is kind of crazy because even when we were doing real estate, we had technically more credibility buying businesses because we had more businesses than we had real estate technically. So
it's funny how that works, isn't it?
yeah, it's so weird. I was like, what was I even doing back then?
But seriously.
Yeah. And when we made that pivot, and a lot of our investors were like, ooh, we don't know like almost anybody who does that. So I was like the only guy doing it. Whereas when I was in real estate, there was like, I don't know, there's like at least 24 other people trying to do the exact same thing that I'm doing, most likely way more than that. And then I became the only one who was doing what I was doing. And then when I tried to raise capital the same way for business that I did for real estate, it flopped. Like, it flopped hard. And I was like, wait a minute, what's going on here? And then like I just started to meditate on that problem, and then I realized that and this is so obvious now, but real estate investors don't buy businesses. That's why they're buying real estate. They're just not the same. It's not the same mindset, really.
Yep.
Even though you would think it's similar because they both have cash flow. They're both assets.
About buying things.
Yeah, about buying things. It was similar enough for me to do it. I guess I'm just, I look at things kind of at a broader sense. So for me, it looked almost the exact same. I like just this one better. But I realized that it just wasn't for them. And then I started to research different avenues for raising capital. And then I found out that there were investors that wanted to do what I was doing out there the whole time. And it was more of them, and they were willing to write bigger checks. And they were like just everything was so synergistic. And it's like, I just wasn't even in that world. It's like, I just was so, I guess, dead set on doing things the way I had always done them. So I think, anybody listening to this podcast episode, it's like, if whatever you're doing for some reason doesn't seem like the way, and you've given it time, and you've tried it for a bit, like there's another way out there, and you'll be surprised at how efficient that other way might actually be. And like right now, raising capital in our business, we're still in beta mode, so we still got to test it a little bit, but like I've found more investors in the past 3 days than I have in like the last several months of trying it my old way. So
And that is exactly why I hit so hard and in really paused weird ways too. But that's why identification and qualification of the philanthropic cycle are so important, because you're able to have the right conversations with the right people at the right time.
Absolutely.
And that's how that cool flow of synergy within the past 3 days that you're having, that's how that happens. Because you're able to position yourself in a way that you can have success for everybody involved. And that's the kind of exchange you want to have when you're seeking any kind of investment for your business.
Absolutely. So if somebody wants to work with you or your amazing team, let's say they have a non-for-profit and, they're new to this, they're in the weeds of it, and they're trying to figure things out, and they're having maybe some hard time struggling, figuring out who they should find for donors, their actual mission, their vision, how to articulate that, all those
strategy,
the strategy.
anything.
If they want to work
People say stuff like this, and it's like, what even is strategy? You know what I mean? Like when I was studying, I was like, what are you even talking about? Stop saying strategy.
Well, the way I find strategy is the easy button or the easier button, because maybe there isn't an easy button in some cases, but there is a easier button in most cases that I've come across, and that's really what strategy is. So if somebody wants to reach out to you because you have access to the easier button, how would they get in contact with either you or your team?
Yeah, so if you want to jump on our website, it's thecultivatedgroup.com. cultivatedgroup.co. You can also go to the cultivatedgroup.com. It'll redirect you, no issue at all. If you want to find us on social, we're just at the Cultivated Group on Facebook and Instagram. I guess we're also on Pinterest and LinkedIn now. So if you want to have a peek, you're more than welcome to. But if you want to reach out to us via email just directly, it's admin, ADMIN, at thecultivatedgroup.co. And we're happy to entertain any questions that you have. Would love to help you better have an understanding of just a quick one-pager of what your organization is and how you can articulate that in a way that will really effectively get people excited and invested in what you're doing.
Awesome.
Absolutely.
So everyone, make sure you email your questions. It's Giving Tuesday. Go out there, raise some money for your nonprofits. We are wishing all of our listeners the best. And thank you again, Emily, so much for coming onto the podcast a second time and providing us with a wealth of knowledge again. This was amazing, and our conversations are like always great. So we really appreciate it. Thank you.
I love it. Thank you guys so much for having us, or having me, not who's us. But thank you guys so much. I'm just like, me, myself, and who?
You're representing the organization.
Yes.
Yes, my representative.
I say it all the
Thank
time.
you so much for having us. And seriously, I'm so excited to see what you and your audience does in the world, because I think the world needs more people like us who are being really intentional about the path that we're carving, the ways that we're moving forward. And I think the best way to do that is to have conversations like this and to share knowledge and share cross-industry experience and inspire each other. And I'm just really grateful to be here. So thank you. And I hope you had a great Thanksgiving.
So that's all we have for today, folks. I hope you got as much value out of this as we did. Keep in mind, the only way we can improve is through constructive feedback. So remember to rate and review this episode. Also, you are not the only person that needs to know this super valuable information. So be sure to subscribe and share as well. Stay tuned for the next episode, and remember to always spread abundance. Peace.